it's getting ready for World War III. And
something, or if not World War III, because that's sort of a term that's used a lot for maybe too much. But I would think even worse than World War III, I think a second war on terror would be even worse. You know, you have non-uniformed combatants who are Russian cyber gangs, and we need to spend trillions of dollars and take control of the region. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, more of a cyber war, maybe Cyber War 1.
Yeah. Ooh, Cyber War 1. Quote, time and time again, a huge portion of those trace back to actors in Russia. And so if the Russian government wants to show that it's serious about this issue, there's a lot of room for them to demonstrate some real progress that we're not seeing right now, Mr. Wray said. Yeah. Mr. Wray, who has led the Bureau since 2017, has about 6 years remaining on his 10-year term, and Mr. Biden has said he plans to keep Mr. Wray in the post. He has kept a low profile during his tenure as the FBI faced criticism from former President Donald Trump, who publicly and privately contemplated firing Mr. Wray. In his few public appearances during the pandemic, Mr. Wray has pushed the private sector and international community to collaborate more with the FBI to battle hackers, including those from criminal gangs and foreign intelligence services seeking information from U.S. companies and institutions. Here's the end of the article here. While the FBI has a policy of discouraging targets of such cyber attacks from paying the ransom, Mr. Wray said the agency was more interested in having companies cooperate with the Bureau in their investigations into the attacks to help piece together the puzzle of who is behind the attacks and figure out ways to thwart them. On Thursday, a senior Justice Department official issued a memorandum to U.S. attorneys' offices around the country, urging all ransomware investigations to be coordinated with the task force created in April. Mr. Wray said coordination can pay off for ransomware victims and law enforcement alike. Quote, I don't want to suggest that this is the norm, but there have been instances where we've been able to work with our partners to identify the encryption keys, which then would enable a company to actually unlock their data without paying the ransom, he said. Okay, so there you go. Mr. Wray saying, hey, don't pay the ransom. We'll crack it for you, which is not an insignificant clue. We know that intelligence agencies, oh my gosh, their dream come true would be able to break any encryption that they want. And we do know that they have the most sophisticated encryption cracking technologies, mainly focused on breaking the encryption for cryptocurrencies, but I guess they can use it in a lot of other ways too. But there you go. So this ransomware scourge is triggering all of my millennial 9/11 trauma responses.
Yeah, and it's almost like the war is already taking place, in so many ways, because part of the Great Reset, a continued rollout of the problems with the current infrastructure. Then you have Biden's infrastructure plan. You have the UN 2030 agenda. You have all the, and computing being a major component to all of the modern infrastructure. Yeah. The technocracy wants to see an overhaul. It doesn't come easily. You need to poke holes in the what currently stands in order to build the new system.
Yep.
And so it makes a lot of sense to do just that, to create a modern cyber, not just 9/11, but any kind of event throughout history that has created or brought us into a type of war.
Yeah.
It's not surprising at all. And to wrap up the cyber pandemic segment here, this has been discussed. We talked about it before, but I think it's worth revisiting, and that is the Cyber Polygon event, which it took place last year. It's where Klaus Schwab said all his, ridiculous, evil things. But also it's happening again July 9th. and it's an online event here. And, they have their whole war game situation where they put together a scenario of a cyber attack, and, you can play the corporations and see, what kind of response you can have. But there's a quote here right on the cyberpolygon.com website from Klaus Schwab. And it says, quote, "Technology and cybersecurity are of crucial importance in this COVID era. One of the most striking and exciting transformation caused by the pandemic has been our transition to the digital everything, both in our professional and also in our personal lives. I am glad that Cyber Polygon has proved itself as one of those brilliant initiatives that address the needs for developing and enhancing global cyber resilience in the fight against cybercrime and cyber attacks." And the Cyber Polygon is an annual online event which connects various global organizations to train their competencies, exchange best practices, and bring tangible results to the world community. And much like, Event 201 did for COVID, this is like the cyber.
It's basically the Event 201 of cyber attacks.
Yeah. Concept of 2021, the ever-expanding digitization tightens the interconnectivity between people, companies, and countries. The secure development of ecosystems across the globe will determine the future of humanity for decades to come. And this is a big white section here. World Economic Forum supports Cyber Polygon. Cyber Polygon is an initiative of bi.zone. That's bi.zone. SBIR ecosystem supported by the World Economic Forum Center for Cybersecurity. So there you go. I mean, it's pretty straightforward here. They have some trailers. They got some cool looking things. You can go to their PDF document that describes the training and what kind of format they have. They have a red team and a blue team. The red team training organizers from bi.zone simulate the attack. They're the bad guys.
Yeah.
Red, commies. And then the blue team, the Democrats, participating teams, protect their segments of the training infrastructure. And they go through defense and response. And so there's a whole scenario, 1, 2, I think, two scenarios with different objectives here. And, part of this also, because the World Economic Forum is part of it, we know that the World Economic Forum is also part of the entire climate change agenda, the United Nations agenda. It's all kind of tied in together. And there's a World Economic Forum article here that's headline, "It's time for investors to take a lead on climate policy." And I bring this up because I think part of the reason why oil and meat is being attacked specifically in terms of the cyber hacks or the ransomware attacks is because it's in line with the whole climate policy change that they want to make with the infrastructure. A big part of it is food. And just to go over the bullet points of this article right off the World Economic Forum website. Bullet point number 1, while many leading Wall Street firms are making climate pledges, these are not always backed up with action. We need action from Wall Street. Investment firms must now integrate public climate policy into their business objectives and activities. And bullet 3.
Wall Street do that?
Just where they put their money. Doing so will help meet net zero pledges, keep increasingly ESG-focused investors on side, and will benefit their bottom line too. And then it says here, the recent election of 2 activist directors to the board of one of the world's biggest oil and gas companies is a watershed moment for climate action. However, Wall Street's leaders have provided little more than a trickle of support for the public policies needed to accelerate dramatic market shifts and make net zero a reality. A case in point, in April, investors managing $37 trillion committed to the Net Zero Asset Manager initiative, whereas May investors' statements for U.S. EPA methane regulations, a critical early step on the path to net zero.
Wait. So $37 trillion?
Yes.
Where did this come from? Say that again.
Okay. Case in point, in April, investors managing $37 trillion committed to the Net Zero Asset Manager Initiative, whereas a May investor statement for U.S. EPA methane regulations, a critical early step on the path to net zero, garnered investor support for just a mere $5.35 trillion in assets under management.
That's a little bit of a sneaky way that they're putting that.
I know.
Investors that manage 37 trillion.
It doesn't mean that they have 37.
It doesn't mean they invested the 37 trillion or they even have that much to invest. That's just, they could have 36.9 trillion invested in oil and coal production and then put the 0.1 trill into something else. It's just kind of a deceptive way to phrase that.
Sure. It does say committed to the Net Zero Asset Manager Initiative. So theoretically, I guess it's supposed to be all there for that.
I'm sorry. Read it one more time. I know it's not the most important point, but I'm just curious.
Investors managing $37 trillion committed to the Net Zero Asset Manager Initiative.
Yeah, so they just committed. They didn't even invest in the initiative. They just committed to the initiative.
Yeah. Whereas a May investor statement, blah blah blah, only garnered $5.35 trillion. Now I bring this up because, bringing it back to Bitcoin, there's an attack on Bitcoin, right? And I think this is pretty clear. Like, oh, bad guys, ransomware attackers use Bitcoin. And part of it is because Bitcoin kind of, I know there's some skeptics about Bitcoin and the origins and all that kind of stuff, but in the grand scheme of things, they did sort of jump the gun in terms of a worldwide digital currency, an internet-based currency. And they kind of just released it to the people, that's why the very first people that loved Bitcoin were all anarchists. The anarchists were like, this is great. This is exactly what we want to, fight governments and all this kind of stuff. And, the people that are anti-central bank and stuff, they all love Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So that's why. It's because it's for the people and all those narratives there. But part of, I think, and this goes back to Elon Musk too. Remember Elon Musk at the beginning of the year was like, hey, Tesla's buying Bitcoin. You can buy Tesla cars with Bitcoin. And people were like, oh, this is fantastic. And then like a month later, he was like, oh, Bitcoin uses too much energy. This is not going to work out. And part of it is because Tesla were they were in profits for the first time, I think. And a lot of it came from the carbon credits or whatever. It was like the one of those initiatives that gives them money basically for being green. And so that's how they were in profit. And so I'm sure somebody got in Elon's ear and was like, you can't push Bitcoin because look at this one article that says, Bitcoin uses all this energy, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of that, if you look into it, isn't exactly true the way the mainstream media reports on it.
Yeah, again, how to lie with statistics.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going.
Well, let me just explain why I brought that up is because I think what they want to do, and Elon actually tweeted again yesterday during Miami, Bitcoin 2021 big conference for Bitcoin, and his whole tweet was like, he misses Bitcoin. He's like crying. He made it into like a breaking up with a girl he loves meme kind of thing. And I think part of it is because they're going to start pushing a green type of cryptocurrency that they're going to try to take down Bitcoin with. And it's really going to be a battle between people who want open, free kind of internet money versus people that want or are forced to use a sort of, government or international institution derived cryptocurrency. And it brings us to IT News Online here. And the headline here, Planet Watch announces the listing of the Planets token on Bitfinex exchange. Planet Watch, a French startup which decentralizes and incentivizes environmental monitoring, announced that its utility token, Planets, will be listed on Bitfinex. Planets are the first Algorand asset, standard asset, to be supported on a major international exchange. And for those of you watching the stream here or the video later on, the logo, Basil, the logo for Planet Watch. First off, Planet Watch, Can't be a little more creative with the name here.
Uh huh.
Is